Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Michael and Patty Show coming to you live, recorded from the Charlottetown Yacht Club with summer quickly approaching. In fact, I think this is the first day of summer and Father's Day, is it not?
It is.
And how is Patty today? You're looking wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I am feeling like it is not really the first day of summer. I was expecting a beautiful day, which we always probably in Canada look forward to. Warm temperatures, sunny skies, whereas today it is overcast and a little bit cool, but I'm sure barbecuing outside this evening will be quite enjoyable. So
13 degrees Celsius here in Prince Edward Island, and we're transmitting today from an electric vehicle. The Ford F-150 mobile studio is in for repairs, which leads me to sort of I don't know if you'd call it a conduit or a thought. I'm looking for another vehicle now because I don't want something I'm fixing all the time. And I looked at a picture of a truck. Like the truck, looked through the windows from the pictures that the salesperson or whomever took the pictures, and there's snow in them. What would that make you think? And we're going to tie this into real estate.
yeah, it was a really good point when you had mentioned that there was snow pictures and making you feel, why has this truck, this vehicle been available for sale for so long? Which then when you tie that into real estate and what the consumer experiences, you have to wonder, this is because again, we become desensitized because we're in this business for so long and it is just what it is. And we understand the fluctuating markets and seasons. However, as a consumer, which was a really neat experiment for you to have shared with me this morning, Michael, that you didn't like the fact that this vehicle, this truck being offered for sale on the market had snow pictures. And it's the same experience for real estate. When a consumer is looking through photos on realtor.ca or whatever platform they're looking and doing their shopping on, if they see snow pictures when it is indeed summer, it doesn't give them a good feeling. And they're wondering, wow, this property has been on the market for a long time. Not to say they can't check the days on market for the property, but it really makes them question, maybe pump the brakes, tying into your vehicle.
Well, what I did, soon as I saw this truck sitting on the lot, automatically my finance business brain kicked in, and I'm thinking to myself, this truck is costing that dealership probably finance dollars to have that truck on the lot each and every month. And now we're into July almost, middle of June, and I'm thinking we haven't had snow since probably December, January, maybe February. So it's been sitting there for 5 or 6 months, whatever the case may be. I'm thinking, what's wrong with the truck? What's wrong with the brand? What's wrong with this model? What I did next, and this is what people do with houses as well, is you start to think, what am I missing with this equation here? And what I found out in my research is this particular truck has engine failure issues, which I never would have looked for if the pictures were up to date, which there's no excuse for, especially in car sales, because you're walking from your office, traversing maybe a couple 100 feet to the vehicle to take new photos, or you get your photographer to go out there. With Patty and I, it's just a matter of picking up the phone and sending Oliver out there, which is the best photographer on the island, or our videographer, which is Jeff Eager, which we'll speak on shortly about what Jeff's all about. But basically, there's no excuse for that, and you're sending a major message to the consumer because now they're thinking, what's wrong with this equation? What's wrong with this truck? What's wrong with this house? Does it have a leaky basement? Is it overpriced? Is it in the wrong neighborhood?
Yes, and with the vehicle marketing, they're not having to worry about the seller saying, well, you didn't take it at an angle where you captured all the new tulips coming through the ground, which is typically what ends up happening for real estate. People are in a rush to get rid of the snow pics, so you pay if you're somebody that actually pays for marketing materials and you're not using your phone to go out and recapture, especially if this new house went on the market during the winter months. At what point do you retake your photos, especially if you are using, because it can be quite costly only to find out if the seller only signed a 6-month listing. They listed it in December, January. Now it is May, June. It is green grass. They want all new photos, but you're not guaranteed yet whether or not this seller is going to commit and give you the extension or list the property for another 6 months with you. So there's a little bit. So, again, from a seller's point of view, understand some of the struggles that a listing agent may have. They need a commitment. And as a seller, I know you want the photos updated immediately, even though the grass is brown. And then you want more photos in, say, June, once the flowers are all up. And then I also get sellers that say, well, this is the prettiest time. It is July. All my gardens are in full bloom. Would you be able to come back again and recapture, only to find out in September because you weren't able to get it sold, just probably pricing or positioning where the location is, and you're out thousands of dollars. So there's a little bit of a, just again, understanding the backside of it all, a juggling game, that what is the best time? When do you get new photos? And again, for the truck, Michael, that you're talking about, as long as there's no snow in the background, they don't have to worry about how green the grass is.
Absolutely. But we are going to touch on a bunch of different subjects here. Number one, if you have a listing that's coming up for expiry and you have winter photos, that's a good opportunity as a listing agent to say, we need to do a reshoot. At the same time, we have a month left. There's no sense spending another $1,000 if I'm losing the listing, which I know you never have. But if, in theory, if you did, you could use this as a point to relook at the price, re-examine the market, see where it sits, examine what marketing you've done, improve your videos and your photos. Now, looking at the car scenario versus the house scenario, when we photograph a car, do we call the local portrait or wedding photographer?
No, not
Landscape photographer.
Oh,
What about Oliver? He's a trained architectural photography. He's the guy we use. He's the best. There's no one better on the island. We've tried most of them. I was going to say all, but that's an impossibility. But when you're shooting a car, and you'll notice this on autotrader.ca or whatever you're using, some pictures are so compelling you want to pick up the phone and buy that car sight unseen. Others, on the other extreme, you've got these cartoon photos, much like these AI process photos that some agents are using that I've seen primarily in the Burlington, Hamilton, Oakville area where the house doesn't even look real. I don't like those. The point being, when you're shooting a house, you don't hire the guy that's shooting cars, portraits, or landscapes. You hire an architectural photographer because he is the one that's going to show off those lupins.
absolutely. And again, that comes back to timing. Residential properties or property on PEI, anywhere actually across North America, you just time when is the best time. And if you are a seller and you know, which I've already have done this, I have a seller that some winter they're going to end up deciding come late fall, this is it. We're not making the drive. They're American clients and we're not coming back up to Canada. So we have already acquired and have taken our marketing photos for this particular property. So whenever I get the phone call, I am going to be ready to have beautiful summer photos of their property, and they'll all be pretty reflective. If they do need to be updated, that'll be something that we revisit every year until they're ready to go. So if you do know you're going to be selling next year or come late fall, perhaps get into contract or in communication with an agent today to capture that marketing photos so that you can be prepared and really have that loud punch. Just your property really stands out when it does debut on the market.
A few years ago, I shot a house in August, September, knowing we would be going on in January, and it was a really bad, poor market. And we actually had offers flying in, competitive offers, and people wanting to buy that property completely sight unseen based on the photos we had shot 3 or 4 months prior to going on the market. So absolutely.
Yeah, just a marketing strategy.
Moving along, so we get photos done by the best architectural photographer. The next thing we do is we get the best architectural videographer, and this is a special shout out and free commercial for him. His name is Jeff Eager. Jeff is you could say, honestly, a world-renowned videographer. He's done stuff all over the planet. He's done commercials. He's worked for the government doing tourist videos. He's done all kinds of neat stuff. Back in the old days when Jeff would shoot one house that was thousands of dollars, Jeff now shoots consistently for us because I said to him, I said, "You're an artist, so rather than sitting around twiddling your thumbs, you could be out shooting houses for between a minute and 3 minutes long, because you usually want that video under 3 minutes." Jeff is awesome. And we also want to have another shout out to who?
Well, first of all, Jeff's company is HBH Productions, and he has done exceptional work. And he's great to work with. My clients all love him. I'm sure your clients all appreciate his professionalism, and he's personable and he's creative and he's just fun to work with. And also his father for tuning in and listening, downloading our episodes and that. And yeah, we really appreciate. And if you want to know where we get our professional marketing, there's our crew. That's the team we use.
Moving into another subject here, we're going to cover topic number 2 and then topic number 1, just to be tricky.
Okay.
Agents representing buyers and sellers in areas they know nothing about. So essentially, what that statement means, and you've seen more and more of this since COVID, prior to COVID, you had a lot of people in the province where, oh, we're not going to go past this road. Our office doesn't represent towards whatever, Route 13, and that's another office. And all of a sudden, COVID started, and every office is provincial wide. Now, there's a problem with this. Actually, there's 2 problems. Number 1, as a member of the Canadian Real Estate Association and referring to yourself as a realtor, which is a trademark, under the code, Article 12, what does it say, Patty?
Article 12 of the
We don't
CREA
need to read
Realtor
it
Code,
verbatim.
which requires, no, we will.
No, we won't.
Yes, we will.
We
Which
don't.
requires realtors to provide skilled and conscientious service in conformity with the standards of competence reasonably expected in the specific real estate market in which they're opening or operating. The CREA specifically notes that no client is served well by a real estate agent who provides services in an area with which they are not familiar, and that doing so raises concerns under Article 12. So if you're operating outside of your knowledge area, that's a regulation being breached. So something to be mindful of. And if you're a client, you wouldn't know this information. This is all the regulatory body that we have to adhere to, and the standards and that, and the code of ethic that we follow. So when you are hiring a realtor, just know that you are or should be hiring somebody that, I guess, really respects and appreciates.
Has expertise in that market.
Yeah, but also is held to a higher standard than just a private sale or, the companies that just allow you to offer your own property. We are held to a higher standard, which should protect clients out there, the public.
So from a consumer point of view, if you're using an agent, make sure they do have expertise in the market in which you're buying or selling. And if they don't, there's nothing wrong with, and I've done this in the past, I don't know if you have, if you have a client that's looking at properties that are an hour and a half, 2 hours apart from each other, number 1, I'm not doing that. Number 2, I will set you up with 2 or 3 other, probably 1 or 2 other agents. So between 2 or 3 of us, we can cover the whole province. Because number 1, I don't have the expertise. And number 2, I'm not driving for 4 hours to show a house in an area I know nothing about.
Absolutely. So what should you do if you're a realtor listening to this? Bring someone on who knows the area, the niche market perhaps. Bring another realtor on with you so that the client is being properly protected and serviced, because we have an obligation to do so. The next thing is, don't be greedy about commission or your real estate fees because you're worried, well, if I bring someone else on, now I have to share it. Well, it could cost you a whole lot more and your client if you don't have the expertise and the skills to do so or service your client in the market that they're looking for a product in. So Make sure that you are mindful of your area of expertise, your education and training. It's a great opportunity to bring someone on so that maybe you can shadow and watch how they navigate and learn something from them instead of trying to fumble your way through and hope that you learn while you're on, I guess, on tour. It's just not fair. It's not fair because it costs your clients money too without them realizing.
Patty, the next subject's kind of nitpicky. I don't know if this has happened to you, where you have a client or a business partner or whatever, they're looking at a lower end property and they end up writing the offer through somebody else, typically the listing agent. And that's why it's an advantage to be a listing agent opposed to a buyer's agent. And they did that offer through the listing agent because they're fairly well versed in real estate and they thought this deal was far too piddly for big, huge powerhouse Patty.
I don't usually get it based on price point, so I'm assuming this was a Michael Poczynek moment. However, what I do receive is I will have clients who will reach out to a listing agent, or I have had in the past, they'll reach out to the listing agent to just get some information because they feel they want to look after me, protect me. They know that I'm busy, so they feel I might be too busy to do this, the little inquiries in the beginning, only to have the listing agent, feel go all excited because you're not under buyer's contract. Okay, great. Well, you know what? I can just write the offer because I've had other agents who, even though my clients say, well, Patty's my agent, that's fine. I can just quick and get this written up for you. We can get this done before somebody else comes in and they plant the fear of loss. So that's usually what my clients would end up receiving. So I try my best to educate them.
The bottom line is no deal is too small.
And I'm not too busy.
Whether it's a $10,000 lot or an expensive property, it all gets treated the same way. It's sort of like the story of the carpenter making the drawer in the kitchen and an apprentice carpenter's looking at him working away, making the back of the drawer to perfection, sanding it, painting it, lacquering it, doing whatever you do to kitchen drawers to make them look good on the back. And the apprentice says to this carpenter, which had been doing it for decades, he says, "Why are you wasting so much time on the part of a drawer that no one's ever going to see?" And the carpenter looked at the apprentice and he said to him, "Because I'm going to see it." In other words, if you're not going to do a good job with everything you do, regardless of price point, don't do it. And if you're not going to do a good job to begin with at any point, regardless of price point, find another business. Because you find that as well. You see people picking up listings and doing a really piss poor job and thinking, like, if your heart isn't in this and it isn't your objective every day to serve your client to the best that you possibly can in the form of marketing or market data, advertising, whatever you're doing, telling you if you're working for the buyer or the seller, don't do it.
Absolutely. And I think that's great advice. We don't want, and it's like this in any industry, make sure you're doing something that you really enjoy. Your clients will, it will come through in your work. It will come through, again, speaking from our industry, it will come through in the level of service that's provided. And if you have somebody that's really short with their interaction with you, how do you think they interact with other realtors in that too? I mean, they could be just in there to cash checks and you can really feel that energy and vibe. So depending on what you're looking for, you might want someone just to come in quick and get the deal done and get out. That's great. But if you have somebody who this is their love and their life and their passion and they really enjoy it, you will be able to pick that up and you will be able to feel it. Floyd Wickman was an old trainer that I guess he did a group called the Sweat Hogs. Floyd Wickman is like the Elvis of real estate. And Floyd always said you could feel the smile through the phone. And if you weren't having a good day and you were struggling and you knew you still had to show up and make your calls, make them in front of a mirror looking at yourself with a goofy smile because your clients will feel it. That's how much you have to love this business.
As long as we're getting into voice training and communicating on the phone, the other thing you need to do is get up off your ass and stand up because you
Yes.
project your voice a lot better if you're standing, which is why in a lot of successful sales centers, they'll remove all the chairs because the salespeople will project themselves better verbally when they're standing. And in a lot of cases, they subscribe to your theory of talking with your hands.
Yes. So the point is, I mean, I know for myself, this business means a lot to me, and I take pride in what I do, and I try my best to make sure I give my best every day to my clients. So provide the service that you have subscribed and said, this is the industry I'm going to be in, and show up, do a good job.
Patty, you just smacked me in the side of the head. Stop talking with your hands. We're in a smaller electric vehicle today. I'm going to give you a bit of a side story about a property I looked at over a year ago, and they ended up listing. We didn't really connect. I can't remember the circumstances. Doesn't matter. They end up listing with a buddy. Well, Buddy obviously wasn't invested in real estate. He's very part-time, almost semi-retired, and took some beautiful, beautiful pictures in the early spring surrounded by mud. And he's got excellent examples of the garbage recycling cans that we use here that were placed in front. In addition to that, this was a recreational property. And because of land use restrictions, they couldn't subdivide off a lot, so it was condoed. So they took it and they marketed it with the muddy, rainy, cloudy day garbage can pictures, and it was on the market for over a year as a condo. How many people do you think are looking for a condo out in the country?
A very low
Zero.
percentage.
Zero. So I thought to myself, your pictures are garbage. You're not invested in your business. The description wasn't very good, but I thought, what would you do to that listing other than rephotographing it? He had no video to actually sell the property. And it's the first thing the new agent, because they gave the buddy over a year, did when she put the property back on the market. She listed it as not a condo, as a cottage,
Oh, as a cottage. Okay.
right? Which we're not going to get into the debate whether you should or should not do this. There is a condo listing, there is a cottage listing, but people will find that cottage listing because she did phenomenal pictures. She is going to sell that. I'll guarantee you within 90 days.
Nice. Good for the sellers too. Again, that's just a different strategy, marketing.
Yeah, a
How,
working one.
yeah. What and how can I rewrap this and present it in a different way than the year lost? And like you were mentioning about the dealership, that dealership with the truck has been sitting there, the maintenance and, the oil changes, there's the cost to carry. Well, this particular seller, the cost of carrying was a year's worth of electricity and property taxes and any maintenance and upkeep that was needed. It costs them a lot more in the end to have to carry this. Hopefully they can make it up with the new marketing strategy.
Well, this particular property has been sitting vacant, and you're not doing oil changes on a truck sitting on a lot.
Well, you can't just let it sit. It has to be driven.
It's not. It just sits there and it rots away until some unsuspecting snow-buying purchaser comes along and buys it. But most dealers are financing the vehicles on the lot, which would attribute to the base cost of that vehicle, not to mention the fact that you're getting one that was manufactured a long time ago in comparative to something that just came off the assembly line that might have some updates. This isn't a car show. Why are we still talking trucks?
Because there's so many parallels.
In Prince Edward Island, we have something called IRAC, Island Regulatory Appeals Commission. They have a very incredible website at irac.pe.ca under lands protection. And one of the rules there is you can't buy a property without making an application for anything above 165 feet of water frontage or 5 acres. So
If you're a non-island resident.
if you're a non-island resident, very good. So, what some people have opted to do if they own properties that are close or next to I should say next to, not close to, the property being sold is get a surveyor, get the government to approve the moving of a property line and bringing it under that 165 or 5 acres. Have you heard of this being done?
No.
Well, I have, and we've done it.
Okay.
Little tip. So let's just assume you've got 2 or 3 waterfront properties and grandma owns one on one side, the cousin owns the one on the other side. You could, in theory, move the property lines closer in so you could avoid IRAC. Personally, I wouldn't bother. I would just go through IRAC. But in this particular example, for whatever reason, I think they moved the line like 2 feet to get around it. Probably because it was a lower end purchase, they were able to save a couple $1,000 because it's a 1% application fee as well.
So by moving it, the land that they're losing by moving them in to put them under that limit, was that just gifted to the neighbors?
So now you're getting into capital gains. There's no neighbor. You're moving the lot line from you to them.
Because you own the adjacent property.
Correct.
Oh, I see.
And since it was a family member, and this is a different conversation that Patty brought up, in theory, there would be a capital gain there, but since it would be in the form of a gift from a family member, that would potentially negate that. Talk to your chartered accountant and don't call us.
Yes, but what my base feeling listening to this particular topic is a red flag. Do not try or attempt to circumvent IRAC. Like, this is not the message. At least that's not
But
any.
that's why I said just pay the 1%.
Make sure that you call IRAC. Make sure that you speak to a lawyer. We are not advocating to circumvent them at all. This is the rules. These are the laws that we agree to abide by, being Prince Edward Island residents. So if there is a property that is IRAC applicable because you're a non-island resident looking to acquire it, just there might be some creative ways if a seller owns the adjacent property and it's a matter of getting it resurveyed, so they end up retaining a larger percentage or portion to make that adjacent property saleable. That is fine, but just make sure that you're doing things the right way.
Well said, Patty. On to be aware of where your water and septic lines come from and go to.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll want to make sure that if you're buying a property that has well and septic, obviously there are rules and where the well and the septic is, depending on the age too, the distance, and are they all adhering? And obviously, as part of our agreement of purchase and sales, you're doing testing. If you're a listing agent and you are listing a property, this is a question that you would definitely want to have with your seller to identify where the infrastructure, the systems are that are running the home. There are properties on the island because it used to be family and they just chopped it back a little bit. Now they're offering it to the public. It's no longer going to be a property that's within the family. However, the septic is encroaching on the adjacent property. Now you're getting into some issues there, and you would never know as a buyer because you would just assume everything is all intact and within the property boundary lines, but not always the case. So really smart to ask these questions. And then if it's a property that is in a city limits and it's still on its own well, on its own septic, or on its own well and septic, make sure you ask the questions why, because there could be other issues going on that have prevented them maybe in the past. You should also be aware of the cost. If you are a buyer looking to acquire one of these properties, this is not something that the city takes on. This is something that the property owner will have to pay to connect, and you need to know where the connect lines are and is it an option for you? Because if you do have contaminated water, a cracked septic, this is not a cheap fix. And especially if you are on a budget and you've acquired this property and you think everything is great, do not underestimate the water and the septic or sewer.
Typically in the country, you're going to be on well and septic. Sometimes with a cottage on the water, there's some few instances where you might be on community water and your own septic. Rarely you'll see community septic unless the subdivision was extremely problematic. I can only think of one subdivision that's doing this in the form of septic. In the city, which is really why we put this topic on the agenda for today, Patty and I have come across houses that are in the city. Everybody's on municipal water and sewer, which is really where you want to be if you're in the city. However, one house is still on well and septic, and one house has a pump or almost like a mini lift station where it pumps the sewage uphill to hit the lines. These are things that you should be aware of. And if you do have some concerns over them, talk to a plumber and he'll tell you the effectiveness of these systems. And like Patty said, if you have a house, and this has happened more than once, and your septic tank cracks because it's an old septic system, and then it gets into your water system, so now you're drinking contaminated water that has bacteria in it. Then you get a boil order from environment or water people that say you have to boil your water before you use it, even though you're ingesting it when you shower. Did you know that?
That's really gross. And if you have pets, you're giving them the water, even if
Right.
you're drinking bottled water.
So when Patty says it was expensive, relatively speaking, you're probably somewhere between $12,000 and $18,000. And invariably, where will the septic and water lines be in relation to the house? The furthest possible distance out of your way. It's never the line that's 6 feet away where the sidewalk is. It's behind Jib Joe Bob's house next door down the street, and it's 30 feet underground. In my experience, that's what I found. So in this case, with the last houses we looked at, those sewer and water lines, they're hundreds of feet away down the hill. And they couldn't hook up to the sewer or water lines up until such time as the development behind them existed, which was 20 or 30 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that a property that we had come across in Charlottetown, they had a little forest around their property. So now they were getting into one of the charms of this property was the fact that it had these beautiful mature trees all around. They had to get into excavating and removing that part of the property in order to run the line to it. And you could be looking upwards of about $20,000 for a well and septic to be converted to municipal water and sewer. So just something we felt was an important topic to share with our listeners. And it does impact the price. It does impact the list price of a property. So if somebody wants to, they're offering a property at a list price that is comparable to those that are on municipal water and sewer, you might want to be mindful if it isn't. And there's still many properties in the city of Charlottetown that were brought to our attention that are still on well and septic, or at least have one well and they may have their own septic. You want to be aware of that because the cost to upgrade it can be quite steep.
If you're in the city, typically people expect water and sewer to be hooked up to municipal services. The other thing they expect, probably out of 98% of the time, is a driveway. So if you've built this house or you have an older house and the driveway is deteriorated, that's one of the things that is going to be in pricing that house is, does it have a driveway? Now, appraisals are all about comparables and market data, which can be really thin in Prince Edward Island. Which brings us to our next subject. Patty is going to talk about a question somebody asked in a training seminar we had with appraisers. The question was, I think the question formed like this. I've heard as a real estate agent that really nice kitchens and bathrooms sell a house. Is this still true? And do they add value to the home? I'll let you answer that.
But that's two different questions. Yes, they sell homes because they look pretty and people know that they don't have to worry about upgrading the kitchen or upgrading the bathroom. However, does it necessarily increase the value of the home? From an appraiser's standpoint, the question it would be no. They expect it to have a kitchen. They expect it to have the bathroom. They
It would
don't.
depend on data. As soon as they posed this question, I thought the house is going to sell quicker. Sure. Now, when appraisers appraise a house, they do adjustments. So if the house has a one bay garage, there'll be an adjustment. Let's just say it's $7,000. If there's two bays, they'll add $12,000. Three bays, 20. You get the picture. Paved driveway, they'll add or subtract 5 grand. So they do all these adjustments. I've never seen an adjustment for kitchens and bathrooms, but what I was thinking in my engineer brain, and you can let me know if you can concur with this train of thought, is unless you had a bunch of houses that were identical and you had some with nice kitchens and bathrooms and some without, and the ones with the kitchens and bathrooms sold typically for $17,000 more, unless you had that data set, you really don't have facts to base a monetary opinion or value on.
I would agree with you.
Good. Moving along.
Okay.
Patty, too many home sellers are not aware of absorption rates, or for what you've discussed with me in the past, don't even know what they are or confuse them and then give you a hard time because apparently you misguided them.
hmm
It takes time to sell houses in PEI. Tell me more, or do you want me to cover this a
Well, you
bit?
can cover that a bit.
So essentially, what happens is in the past, I've seen offers on properties I've had listed, and then they'll say, oh, it's subject to me selling my house in this community. And I'll think to myself, well, your chances of selling that house and that price range are about the same as me winning the lottery, only to, again, go back to the data to find out that in the price range they are in, there is only 10 sales in 2 years. So I calculated the absorption rate, just basically told me how long it was going to take for their house to sell if it was priced at market, and it would be almost 2 years. Well, what did they do? Which everybody does 90% of the time, is they made an offer on another house subject to selling their house. And of course, their mindset is we're going to put a stupid price on it. And if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In the meantime, we're tying up these guys' house for a year. So they did exactly that. They put it on for too much, because I did do a CMA on their property and it was 10-15% over market. But keep in mind that absorption rates play into how long it's going to take you to sell your house.
Yeah. So as a seller, you are concerning yourself typically with the data. How many days did it take? And you'll see it either says DOM or days on market. And many agents in our industry will allow a listing to expire and then they bring it on. So it doesn't look like it has as many days on market. So then when you do end up, if you're a seller and this is the data that has been presented to you by your agent, and it says this took 30 days without realizing there was one or two expired listings that preceded this particular sale listing that is being used to as a comparable for you, it's not accurate data then. It's not an accurate representation of the market, which then creates a false expectation for you as a seller that, well, so and so, this property that you presented to me sold within 30 days. It is now past 30-day mark. Why is my property still on the market? And then you're backpedaling as the listing agent saying, well, actually, when I did a deeper dive into that particular property that you were referring to, it was actually on the market for a year or 2 years before, and they ended up having to do a series of price reductions before they ended up generating the sale. So days on market are one, and is one component or formula that you use when you are trying to set the price on a property listing. You want to make sure that, yes, you are pricing it at fair market value. You are using comparable data that you are hopefully being presented with, and you are factoring in the days on market on those. But what is often missed, and I know that firsthand that there are realtors that don't understand this to the point where they debated this with me, is the other component or element is the absorption rate. So when you have properties and different price points, what's the absorption rate for that particular price point? The absorption rate for a six to $700,000 home might be different. Well, it will be different, say from a million to $1,100,000 and $1,200,000 plus. The days on market or the absorption rates for these properties. How much inventory is there on the market? How many of these properties in that price point in that region, because our island is divided up into different regions, or within that community area, are actually selling? And like you had pointed out, Michael, in your example, there was 2 years worth of inventory before technically their property came up or would be able to potentially sell. So you want to know how much inventory, how many sales happen in this price point? What realistically can I expect unless your property just really pops and because it's new and fresh and you've priced it properly, you're one of the lucky ones that actually end up transacting that year.
And it's funny how, and I got this feedback from the agent that wrote the offer, how many people accept an offer contingent on someone selling their house and not even do any research as to, is it on the market? What is it listed for? Have they had showings? What are the absorption rates like? What is the inventory? Let's check the pictures. This particular house, I told you about it, where you think you've seen examples of the worst photography in the world, some idiot comes up with something even dumber. So what this was is the main photo, picture this, in a densely populated area on the island, a residential area, decides to take his new 3 millimeter, for anyone in photography, wide angle lens and shoot a picture of it from across the street. So you got a itty bitty bitty tiny little picture of the house in the middle of the frame. And then because the lens basically exposes everything for 180 degrees, because it's obviously a panoramic lens, you can see the entire street, which makes the subject property, the one that's probably going to take forever to sell, thanks to genius's photography, is non-existent in the frame.
Absolutely. And the other thing that with regards to accepting an offer that is sale of buyer's property, what you have to consider if you're a seller listening to this, not only are you factoring in your days on market and the absorption rates for your price point and property, but now you have to factor in the days on market for another property and what are their absorption rates and how long, because you're committing to their time period as well.
And they usually don't care one way or the other that they're wasting your time, as you've experienced pretty well every year.
Yeah, last year, I mean, somebody tied up a property that we had listed with full expectations of we're going to move to PEI. They were non-island residents, and our whole prime selling season, they had the property tied up only to change their mind come close to the end of August and went, you know what? We changed our mind. We're going to stay put. We're pulling our property off the market.
Patty, in closing, I have a topic that actually came up in our Facebook group, which I'll tell everybody about momentarily here. And they had a question. We currently live in Gatineau, Ottawa area and are considering a move to PEI. Some days I feel certain that it's the right decision, while other days I'm not so sure. Here's my advice. You can always move back. And number two, look at real estate like a professional. Don't look at it as how easy is it going to be to get into the market. Always look at your exit strategy getting out. So if you have this opinion, rule number one is you can always move back. But if you're stuck to a house because you bought something silly in the middle of nowhere and paid double what it's worth, that's not a good exit strategy. Professionals always look at the exit strategy before they look at the entry strategy.
That is great advice. The other thing then is, I would say, not knowing the story behind this particular inquiry or individual is, have they been to Prince Edward Island? Are they familiar with the land? Are they familiar that a dollar in one area is different than a dollar in another? Because that takes them to your point, Michael, the exit strategy. So what may seem very affordable in a particular area or setting on the island, there might be a reason for it. You need to be very familiar with regards to how long, what are the days on market and the absorption rates, again, tying into that. If I did end up realizing I don't want to stay here permanently, that happened. That was quite unfortunately a bit of a trend that happened as a result of COVID. There were many that wanted to be on Prince Edward Island, and there was a sense of urgency which drove our prices all up. But there is a percentage of those that decided that they didn't like our slower paced lifestyle. There were just things they never matched, or it just wasn't for them. It wasn't what they were expecting, and they have hopefully successfully been able to, because I know a few that I have taken care of have relocated back to Ontario. They may have to move into a different area in Ontario because property values in Canada they are a little high. In some markets, you may not be able to get in because you've capitalized and you were able to pull out, because we hear them all the time. I can sell my house for X amount of dollars. If PEI isn't for you, can you get back into that same market for X amount of dollars? Or have you lived like a king here and you've spent all your money and now you're starting from scratch again and if you are looking to relocate? So take this as a business endeavor. Enjoy your experience, but be very protective of your dollars just in case it isn't for you, because PEI isn't for everybody. It is a place that it either grows on you or it doesn't. I've lived here now this will be my 17th year being on PEI, and I love the island.
Speaking of growing on you, one of the topics we're going to cover is mold, which we're going to defer to next session.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Michael and Patty Show, otherwise known as MAPS, PEI's podcast that helps guide and navigate you through the buying and selling and a little bit of Prince Edward Island. And if you're looking for an extension of this, we do have the Moving to Prince Edward Island spelled completely out from the Michael and Patty podcast, where we have all these episodes, all little snapshots of what you can expect so that you can pick which one is most relevant to you, as well as we have a Toolbox Tuesday. And this week's featured Toolbox Tuesday is all on sump pumps and what you should know about them. So if you have any questions with regards to that, I believe the sump pump Toolbox Tuesday is being done in 2 parts because there was just so much information and research that I didn't even realize there was so much information on them.
Here's an interesting little tip in regards to sump pumps. Always have a battery backup, because when your electricity fails and your basement is flooding, the first thing that's going to come to mind is not keeping the lights and the heat on. It's going to be keeping the water level below your neck in the basement.
That's actually on the Toolbox Tuesday.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Have a great day.